Good. All right, ready? Call this meeting to order. Time is 6:01 p.m. Next item is approval of the agenda. That the agenda for the council meeting of Monday, July 17th be approved as amended. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Councilor McConnell and Deputy Mayor Kirkby. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary, your term is over. Any discussion about the agenda? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Any declarations of interest tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on. No presentations tonight, and there are no delegations. So we'll move on to the minutes of the previous council meeting. Motion reads that council minutes dated June 19, 2023 be accepted as presented. Mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Burton, Councilor Young. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. 7 is communications and petitions, which there are none. 8 is consent reports. Is there anything in the consent report that people would like to see pulled out? Councilor McConnell?
There's two things, Mayor Shank. Number 4, the Edwardsburg Cardinal resolution regarding the delay of implementation of the agricultural land evaluation and area review. Obviously, Edwardsburg Cardinal is our neighbors. They're concerned about the United Counties arbitrarily designating possible residential land as agricultural. And given the fact that we are also in the business of residential land, and we've been working closely together with both Augusta and Edwardsburg, I think I would like to see us bring this back for discussion.
Okay.
And the second one is the Township of Leeds and Thousand Islands resolution of support regarding the Municipal Heritage Register. I'm on the Heritage Committee, as you well know, and we are having to go through the list of heritage properties that we have, decide whether we are going to keep them as heritage properties. They can only be on a list now for 2 years, and they can't go back on the list for 5 years. Now, there's only about 30 properties that we have. We have a meeting this week. We're going to take them about a half a dozen at a time and go through them. But there are other communities that have many dozens, hundreds. So it is a very hardship for those communities. So I believe we should support this.
Good, we can do that. Thank you. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Kirkby.
Yeah, I'd like to pull out number 8, Bradford West Gilbury resolution on the support right to repair movement.
Okay.
And I'd like to pull out the number. Sorry, I had it in a different format here. Is the it is the well, I'm missing it. I apologize. I don't have it. I have it here, and it is the Chatham Kent Time for Change Municipal Freedom of Information Protection and Privacy Act.
19.
19. Thank you, Ruth. Missed it there.
Okay, number 19. Anyone else? No? All right, so we'll call the question with taking those out. We'll amend the motion. So the items listed with taking those 4 out be accepted as presented. Can I get a mover and seconder? Councillor Lockett, Councillor, so used to calling you that name. Thank you, we'll do that. All in favor? Good, all right. Item 9 is committee reports. There are no committee reports. Item 10 is mayor reports. There's just a couple of things I wanted to say. We've started the Sunday night concert series, and Shakespeare is going well. They've had great weather for it so far. And then we had last week, Matthew and I attended a tri-council with the mayors and CAOs. So we're working on a few things together. We're trying to work on a terms of reference so that when we have those meetings, if each individual council has a quorum, then we can vote on things right there and then. So we're trying to figure that out because there was such a delay. You know, we'd have a tri-council meeting, then it would go back to their council, and if they changed anything, then we were stuck. So we're trying to do that. We're working on a recreation plan, and we'll just keep working with collaboration. We're trying to do the low-hanging fruit first and see how we do with that, and keep working together. But I thought I'd give you guys an update on that, and we're probably going to meet again before that and get things hashed out so that when we do meet, we can actually get stuff done. If that's good with everyone. All right, so we'll go to 11, outside boards, committees, and commissions, and we'll start with Councillor Campbell on the fire services.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. So I attended the fire admin meeting on July 4th. They had their new recruitment night. 4 people attended, and most of those put in applications for to be volunteer firefighters. So although 4, I mean, they were happy with the number, and they're going to do it again. They helped on Canada Day. They sent 3 representatives to help with the hot dogs. On July 4th, they sent 4 representatives to Morristown, New York for the July 4th celebrations. We do that back and forth with Morristown. July 5th, they did a touch of truck at TR Leger. They had 100% attendance at their truck training night at the end of June. And they would like everyone to know that W5 did a session called Under Fire. And it's discussing where we're headed in future for volunteer firefighters, the whole system. So it's called Under Fire W5. So to look that up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, you know, for the people at home, our unit helped out with the big fire in Brockville. And I got a nice letter from Matthew Wren, the mayor of Brockville, thanking us, which I forwarded on to the chief to let the firefighters know that they were well appreciated and they needed our aerial truck. So it was good collaboration. I think there was 7 different fire departments there. So it was a big fire. Councillor Lockett, you want to talk on BIA?
Sure. So we had our BIA meeting. Councillor Young and I both attended. There continues to be support for the pop-ups, a lot of traffic in the area. We received tentative dates for businesses that are opening in town, which is all exciting and encouraging. Lots of positive comments about the downtown looking good, and a lot of participation with the market. And everybody that's there is pleased, and people that are in the pop-ups are weeding their way back to other businesses in town. And is there anything else you want to add, Tracy?
They're also looking at some accessibility options from stopgap. So that's being explored, and visitor tracking. They're looking for some funding to partner with the visitor tracking application with Environics. That's everything.
Good. Where was I? I think it was one of the pop-up ladies posted. It was the Angel lady. She posted like where everyone was coming from, where she had met, and it was quite a wide assortment: Quebec, Ottawa, Kingston. So it's really blossomed. So good job, Dana. All right, Deputy Mayor Kirkby, there was an RSL AGM today.
Yeah, so I attended the RSL AGM with Councillor Lockett and Matthew. It was good. Municipalities all were there. Was Edwardsburg, Cardinal, Westport, Prescott, South Dundas, all who have owned or part of shares, you could say, in RSL, and Prescott being the biggest one. So just a brief overhaul of financial standings and stuff. And the big thing that stood out for me is RSL has definitely produced more profit for the shareholders in the last couple of years than in the previous years. One of the big ones that they talked about is the hot water tank, where they were pretty much losing money on rentals, and they were able to increase the prices on that, still being quite a bit under their biggest competition. So they made a profit last year of 151,000. They issued dividends to all the of 160,000 to all stakeholders, which is roughly around 57,000 to Prescott. So besides that, they offer in service. Simon Wu talked about, he is the CEO of RSL, talked about being able to provide in service person-to-person relations with places like the Northern Cables and other local businesses in Prescott and the servicing areas. That is something that's maybe not offered by other providers.
Lee, did you have anything?
Yeah, you must be a mind reader.
Well, I got everyone, so I thought I'd give you a shot.
All right. Well, yeah, I had an email from one of our long-term residents late last week in the way of a complaint. And he was complaining about one of our parks, and it's not a park that, because of its location, that I walk by or drive by. So I drove out to take a look at it, and I took a look at what his comments were. And while I was there, interestingly enough, there were 4 very young users of that park there. And I asked them what they thought about their park. And they were quite happy with the park, but there was a few things that they like. They like another picnic table. They like a bike rack. They like a sandbox for the little kids. And they like a fire pole.
A fire pole.
A fire pole. I said, I don't know about the fire pole, but.
You're wearing your Santa outfit?
But we're looking for firemen, eh? So if we can get these kids into it early, then perhaps it might be a source of manpower for us down the road. One of the other things that he complained about was the state of one of our gardens. I took a look at it, and it's not in bad shape. I gotta be perfectly honest with you, and I told him that. But it's not in perfect shape. It does have weeds in it, and it could stand to be watered. And then it got me thinking, and as you know, I walk a lot, and I took a drive around, and I see that a number of our flower beds have some weeds in them and could use more water than they have right now. And it just happened that Thursday night I volunteered at Shakespeare to sell 50/50 tickets, and up until the morning of, they were still looking for volunteers to do that. Volunteers are in very short supply. Shakespeare is looking for volunteers. It made me think back on this whole garden issue that we have, and nobody in this room was there during my first term unless you happen to be listening on television. One of our former directors of public works brought a program to us of beautification of this town, and council bought into it, including myself, and many gardens were planted. We have the Shakespeare Gardens at the arena, at the marina. At the time, we didn't have a park. That was still a asphalt wasteland, as Robert Longley used to sit in Justin's chair, called it. And we didn't have the gardens that run up Edward Street And the only question that was asked was by me, and I remember it very distinctly because I asked the director at the time, who's going to look after all these gardens? Our own people don't have the time to do the work that we have to do now. And the answer that I got was volunteers. They're going to organize volunteers to do the work of maintaining or helping to maintain the gardens. And it happened. A lot of volunteers came forward, but volunteers get tired. Volunteers get older. They're typically retired people. Some of them have back problems, some of them have knee problems. And the long and the short of it is, given the extra gardens that we have now with Riverwalk Park, with the gardens up Edward Street, with the extra planters that we have in the main street, our people just don't have the time to make them all perfect. Now, we're all out wandering around and we get people telling us how nice Prescott looks and how much they appreciate what we've done and they love the flowers and all that. But when you take a real close look, you can see the weeds in some of the gardens. And it's because we don't have the volunteers anymore to do it. Mm-hmm. So what I'm making a plea for is volunteers. Prescott is a nice place. I've heard the comment, I pay taxes. Well, yeah, you do pay taxes and you get a lot for your taxes in the town of Prescott. But we still need volunteers to help out with our committees, the cemetery board. I spent a couple hours back there last week trimming a bush that had completely obliterated the tombstone for probably 20 years. It's a nice tombstone, you can actually see it now. What I found was there are 11 tombstones on the south of the cemetery that are being buried by trees. They've all got to be trimmed, and I don't mind spending some time doing it because our people just don't have the time to do it. They were good enough to pick up the brush that I cut. So what I would like to see, our cemetery board is short people right now. I would like to see a couple of volunteers from the public agree to join the cemetery board. And I'm not talking about somebody who just wants to come to a meeting and sit there and vote on something. We need volunteers who are capable of actually doing some work. They don't mind getting their hands dirty. And men and women are equally welcome. So I guess my point, and I never make a point short, as you well know, is that volunteers are the lifeblood of our community, whether it's Shakespeare, the cemetery, gardens, whatever. In the old days, it was rink rats when we had the Leo that was before it was called the Leo. We didn't have a Zamboni. A bunch of kids went out and shoveled the ice off. Volunteers have always come forth in this town, and I know they're out there, and I would like to encourage them to please come forward and help us. It's better for your community. Thank you.
Thank you. I think when did you mention that to the person complaining?
I told him I would be addressing it at our meeting this evening, so hopefully.
You didn't offer him to become a volunteer?
No. It would be certainly helpful. I don't know if physical capable or not. Okay.
I ask a question,
Sure.
Lauren? To be on a committee of, like the cemetery committee, do they have to live in Prescott? Because a lot of people probably use that cemetery that live in Johnstown or Cardinal or whatever, Augusta.
Can I answer that?
Sure.
Yeah.
We have people that work in the Shakespeare Gardens down there that don't live in Prescott.
Are they on a
I've
committee
talked to
though?
them. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't think so. I think they're just volunteers.
I think they could volunteer, but maybe to be on a committee, would they have to live in Prescott, Lindsay?
So through you, yes, to sit on a committee, you have to be a resident. We have made exceptions to that rule. And if they are a business owner, then they can sit on a committee. But typically it is an owner of property within the municipality.
Or renting?
Or renter.
Can I ask you a question? to Lee. So if someone is watching this and thinks, yes, I want to do this, how do they approach the town to put their name?
Well, since I'm the one that's doing the work, they can reach me through the town, or I still have a phone that hangs on the wall, or it sits on the desk actually. So my number's in the phone book, they can call. And to your point, Ruth, yeah, if you want to sit on the cemetery committee, you're gonna have to own property but if you have somebody buried at the cemetery, or you just want to help out at the cemetery without sitting on the committee, by all means, there's no reason why you can't. You don't have to live in town for that.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Okay.
through you, Mayor Shaker, I just wanted to add that if anyone does wish to sit on a board or committee, there is a certain form that is found on the website that people put in and we review, and then sometimes we do have interview process for the committees. That's specifically for board and committee, not for volunteer purposes.
And I did have someone approach me about getting on that board. Is that work going through? That didn't happen? Okay. Try.
You win some, you lose some.
Win some. Thought, oh, here we go. All right, thank you, Lee. Anyone else? Good. We're going to move on to staff reports. We have 5 of them tonight. The first one is from Sean Merriman. Item 12.1, staff report 48-2023, peddler's license, door-to-door sales, Cogeco services. So Sean, it's all yours.
Through you, Mayor Shankar. Cogeco Services reached out to us and submitted a complete application. This information is provided as information for council. They will be going around later this month and early next month to entice the community's members to consider about signing up for internet and telephone and TV services. All the people have been checked through the proper procedures, and they will receive a license from the town when they go out. Should anyone have any problems with these people, they can certainly put in a concern through the bylaw department, and it'll be addressed at that time. And that's the extent of my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Merriman? Deputy Mayor Kirkby?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Shankar. Mr. Matthew. Matthew, I know we're in the midst of doing bylaw review. Where does the peddler's license come, and how long before we can get that under review?
So Mr. Merriman and I had that discussion last week. We intend on getting something to the working group by the end of July and then bringing it back for council consideration in the August meeting.
Sure, thank you.
Good. Councilor McConnell?
Seems to me it wasn't very long ago that we gave, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Permission to, but that was voted on here, was it not? It wasn't just a license that was issued by staff, didn't we have to approve that?
I don't know.
For information.
Information.
I see.
Same.
Okay, well then I guess my suggestion will not
Not
give
work.
her the power to call it, you know. Well, no, what I was gonna suggest, I'm gonna suggest it anyway. I mentioned it last fall, when the gentleman from Rio St. Lawrence was here about the telephone poles on the 500 block of Henry Street. All the wires have been moved except for Cogeco. So my suggestion was gonna be move the wires and we'll give you a license.
Through you, Mayor Shankar. I did talk to a guy that I knew down in that area, and he was working, they were getting the lines ready to transfer for Cogeco next. So just to give you a little update there.
Cause I think.
Bell's done.
Bell's doing theirs.
They did theirs, yes. Yeah.
That was-
Any other questions for Mr. Merriman? So Sean, are we going to do the same thing we did with Bell, where we do a social media?
That is,
Let the people know. We'll get the complaints, but let them know that it's.
I will say this, Bill, we didn't have a single complaint during the time that they were doing the actual sales. They had concerns prior, but none during the actual time of the sales.
Good, good. All right. Sir?
Just, now you got me thinking there, Sean, a bit. Through you, Mayor Shankar. Do we sell a peddler's license to the company, or is each license per individual that's going door to door?
But the company pays for it, but they get a license for each individual.
Perfect.
All right, thank you. So that was for information only, so we'll move on. 12.2 is staff report 49-2023, new water tower infrastructure project. Request for tenders results. The recommendation reads that council approve the selection of landmark structures for the construction of a new elevated storage tank at the tender amount of 6.604100, sorry, $6,604,100 plus applicable taxes. Can I have a mover and a seconder for discussion purposes? So Councillor Burton, Councillor Campbell, Nathan, you got this?
Yeah, thank you, through your mayor. So in early May, the council approved us to go out to tender for this work. And that tender was issued on May 23rd to construct the new elevated water storage tank or the water tower. And we have been working with EVB Engineering to get everything prepared for that. So again, just to kind of reiterate where some of the funding is coming from. So in 2022, the town was approved for funding by the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. And that grant will cover $5,086,000 of the total cost. The Township of Augusta has also provided $90,000 in funding as part of the Augusta Landing Services Agreement. And the town has dedicated funds generated by the sale of 555 King Street as well. And then the rest is through reserves and debt payments supported by the water and sewer revenue. So the new towers are again rated at a capacity that's the same as a water treatment plant. So now it's kind of 1-to-1, and it is significantly larger than the current water tower. The capacity will address future development growth needs as all the councils work together to attract development within Prescott and beyond the borders in Augusta and Edwardsburg Cardinal. On June 15th in 2023, we did receive one bid for this work. It's work that isn't very common. There's a few companies that do this type of work, and so we did get one bid, and it came in at $7,427,000. Again, it's unique construction that very few companies offer the service. So the company was Landmark Structures, and they met all the requirements within the tender request. It was above the estimated budget, so we worked with EVB Engineering and Landmark Structures to understand were there costs within their bid that that we can review and do some value-added engineering on. So without sacrificing some of the major requirements of the construction and of the final product. So the base tender amount was almost 7.3 million. There was a provisional item for chlorine injection, and then there's a contingency allowance that put us up to the 7.4 million. And so through the discussions that we had with them, we did remove the chlorine injection system, and that's removed. So the current water tower doesn't have that, and we're going to make sure that all the piping is there in order to put this in place at a future date, but we're not going to purchase the actual injection system now. So all the piping will be ready for one, but we won't have the actual injection system. And it's there in the event that the water doesn't turn over fast enough within the tower, then sometimes you have to inject some chlorine to kind of get it back to the number that it's supposed to be for the water levels. And so that's something that will be kind of we'll monitor it and see how it's going. And then if we do need that, we'll add it at a later date. The other one was the civil and site works. So we were able to separate that out of the project because it wasn't integral to the water tower. So they said they got one quote on that. So we decided that, and we kind of all agreed that it was a pretty high price. So we were able to have our local contractor. We sent the information to them, and they sent us a bid on it. They had all the information that the other bidders had. And they came in significantly lower and more in line with what we thought it should be. So we felt that was a good trade-off. And again, we're working with a contractor that we know and appreciate the work. There were some small electrical and mechanical changes to the valve room and the antenna structure. So that's so the antenna was quite expensive. It was around $70,000, or the structure pieces for the antenna. The structure will still be there for any antennas to be added to the top of the tower, but we're going to pull out any kind of added things that if somebody wants to put an antenna on the tower, that they have to provide that instead of us doing it ahead of time. So it'll be an added cost to anybody who would like to rent the space of the tower. And so that, and then the other one, the structure changes. So there was, within the base, there's rooms that could be heated or not heated. And we changed that up quite a bit to kind of remove part of the space that was going to be heated. And it doesn't detriment anything at all. So we just kind of downsized some of the spacing there. And then because we pulled the numbers down on the total cost, it pulled the fees down on the bonding as well, and the testing fees. So that pulled the number down to the 6.6 million. So again, one of the alternatives, we council could defer the project, but it's not recommended at this time, as the bulk of the money will be coming from infrastructure funding from other levels of government that has to be spent by the end of, or by March 2026. The water tower financial implications, the water tower again is 6.9 million roughly. That was in 2021. The application approved in 2022. The tender was released in 23. So everybody understands that we did have some COVID type related cost changes, and that's where we came in at a much higher price. And so total cost with everything included, with design and tendering at almost 100,000, the actual structure at 6.6 million, the civil and site works at 170,000, inspection, construction, admin, materials testing, 165,000, and then demolition of the old water tower at 500,000, so it would be roughly 7.5 million. So again, the higher estimate is kind of inflationary pressures that everybody has been experiencing since 2021. So that was an excess amount of 600,000, and that will be funded through the reserves and/or debt payment by the water and wastewater revenue. So if you look at the total numbers, approximately 67% of the project will be funded through federal and provincial funding, and 4.6% through the sale of land and money from Augusta Landings for water, and then the town reserves will be 28%. So again, while it's higher than, the project is coming in higher than we anticipated, we've the larger capacity again will continue to allow to attract development kind of beyond the borders of the town, and which kind of benefits all of the groups and all of the communities around us. And again, 67.5 cents of every dollar spent on this project is funded through an infrastructure grant. That's it, unless Matthew wants to add anything. Oh, there is a letter here from EVB as well that summarized the process that we did go through with the tender process, and how we went to do some value engineering as well with Landmark.
I think the only other thing that I mentioned is our current tower is a little less than 2,300 cubic meters, and our new tower will be 4,200 cubic meters. That's about 85% larger. And so, it is substantially larger than what we have. And really that's why you're seeing, to replace our current tower would be a lot less, but it doesn't meet our current needs, nor does it meet any current needs. And so the other thing that we'll do is, as we're working towards partnering with our neighboring municipalities, any agreements that we work through with that will also help support the cost of the tower.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Councilor Lockett?
Through you, Mayor Shankar. Just a couple of questions. The contingency allowance is just that, an allowance, right? So it may or may not be used.
That's correct. I don't think we've identified anything specific in there, but different things can arise.
That could be, okay. And the other thing is, I see that the demo of the old one, of the old water tower, the same company is doing. Do they have to do it, or is that the best cost effective way?
It will be a separate contract that will put a request for proposal out. So currently we are gathering information on the tower right now as far as like designated substances and a survey, and then we'll go out and tender that at a later date when we have the funding and the reserves to manage that project.
So with that, Landmark will be doing that demolition. We build them, they don't take them down. And so we inquired on a a couple of companies that do take them down, and that 500,000 is in the ballpark of where we expect it to be.
It's a built-in cost, but they're not necessarily going to be the ones doing it.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thanks, Mayor Shankar, through you. When I looked up Landmark, it said they're coding experts and that they can actually design the graphics. Is that included in the price?
So we have a $75,000 allowance in there for the graphics on the tower itself.
Okay.
I think they would like us to develop the concept of exactly what we'd like it to look like, and then they can run with it. So they are aware of a couple of ideas that we had in terms of make it look like White House or, those types of options. It's not something they need to know today, so it's one of those things we made sure an allowance is in there for, and then determine exactly how we move forward with that.
Okay. The other thing they mentioned was there's in the pedestal, there's all kinds of things that you can do, and I think you were talking about those rooms in there, Nathan. Like they said, you can use it for storage and a variety of things.
Yeah, I think, through Mayor, essentially there's going to be some valving and some major piping down there, and then there's going to be a small room for doing some testing, but that's really, I don't think we'll be storing anything there.
Okay.
Anything substantial in it.
And that was one of the trade-offs that we made is we were able to save the 70-some thousand by not making it a heated area. If anything, if we can certainly store valves and piping and things like that in there.
Yeah.
But anything that would require to be heated, the cost didn't really offset that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Campbell.
Sorry, I didn't see my emails today, but I'm just wondering about the land of the old water tower. Do we own it? Are we gonna sell it? Do we get money out of it?
So absolutely. So there's a couple things we could do with it. One, once the tower's demolished and torn down, we could make it into a small park. That's an option for it. We could deem it surplus and sell it on the open market, in which case any proceeds from that will go towards the tower cost. And so I think this tower won't be commissioned until 25. So we have a little bit of time to have that discussion. We also know that once we remove all of the water from the current tower, that we don't necessarily have to remove it right away. So you've now lessened the stress on the overall structure, which was the concern with that tower. And so we can play a little bit with timing to be able to say, when can we best afford to tear it down? And that might be in 26 or even a little bit later. So there's definitely a lot of time between now and then to be able to have the conversation, determine what you want to do with the piece that it currently sits on. And we'll also take a look at it from a residential perspective. Can you fit houses on it, things like that? And then maybe one of the neighbors would also be interested. So.
Matthew, there has been some discussion from the neighbors on who owns that land.
We've gone back, we checked the land registry office as well as on our records, and the town does own the land. There's nothing on title that says it needs to revert to anyone if it's no longer used as a tower. And we're still waiting on that individual to produce any document to be able to substantiate that.
Okay, thank you. Question?
Yeah, I asked a few questions in the email today, and honestly, they all got answered in Nathan's presentation there. I think a couple smart choices I just want to call out was the antenna choice, right? Versus us paying for it, allowing a future user to pay for that because they'll come and want that space. And then, being able to add the chlorine, having the piping done and stuff to allow for it later. Just, in my opinion, they're really good choices of getting that project down. Just on the lighter side of the property for the current water tower is we know that you could probably have a 20-story unit there.
Skinny, let's see on tower-ish.
If you work as $1,000
There you go.
Got a little lighter side there.
What's another restaurant?
Yes.
The Leaning Tower of Prescott.
In terms of the antenna and whatnot, so we do use the tower to communicate between the water treatment plant and the tower, as well as some of our sewage pumping stations. And so, but those antennas are very, very small and can actually, there'll still be a railing around the top of it, and we can just attach to the railing. If there's any antenna that is a substance, all of the base work is still already there. All of the hardening and support for antennas there. It's just the antenna mast itself that isn't being included.
Great. Anyone else? So just a couple of points there that I wanted to point out. One, there's just a typo on that financial implications. It should be 7.5, which it is below. And second, the amount of savings that we're having by having a local contractor do the civil and site work. And Nathan did mention it, how we appreciate that. And, you know, that's in the letter from EVB, and that is Ken Miller's excavation. So it's nice to have local companies doing the work and doing it for, you know, what, 30% on the dollar compared to what was originally quoted. So I think that's worth pointing out. And thank you. I'm going to call the, sorry.
Through you, Mayor Shankar. What have we got in the way of development charges sitting there doing nothing right now that we could put towards it? Because this is certainly an improvement. It's much larger than what we have. How much do we have?
Unfortunately, but development charges can't be used for water and wastewater infrastructure.
Really? Wow, how about that?
But the nice thing is we don't have to pay for that demolition of the old water tower until we do it, right? So you said 26 maybe for that?
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest we would do it. We can't do it anytime before the maintenance commission.
Yes.
And so otherwise we'd all be sitting here
In trouble.
on the tap, hoping the water comes through. And but if we all do it together, it will work. But certainly, I don't think there's any rush to do it, in being able to move that forward.
Great. Okay, answers that.
Yeah.
All right, I already have the recommendation, so, and I have a mover and a seconder, so I could call the question. All in favor? Passes, thank you, carried. Thank you. All right, the next one is 12.3, staff report 50-2023, project update. And this is Nathan as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. So this is a kind of a quarterly update on some of the major projects that are happening in town. Some of the ones that have been completed, I'll step through quickly. So the pedestrian crosswalk lights at Edward and Irvine, those were changed over last week to the rapid flashing lights, similar, same as the ones on King Street. The at the marina, the F dock and fuel dock were replaced. The bathroom floor was cleaned up in the showers. We installed a ductless split or an air conditioner, heat pump to get some cooler air there in the hotter days. The pop-up site was mainly driven through Dana, but everybody's seen the upgrades down there with the lighting, seating, signage, and power. The amenities for the divers, again, that was driven mainly through Dana, and so there's a change room down there for the divers now, and there's also a washroom. And the waterfront trails, this is more on the repairs to the waterfront trails at the shoreline at the Centennial Park. There was some, in March, we put some rock down there so that it protected the shoreline better. So then if we move on to the projects that are approved and in progress, there's of course the recreation complex. Again, it's come along pretty good. There's progress being made. There's still some work to be done. We're saying that it's at 89% completion. That's based on what's been invoiced. So you can with 10% in the next month or so. There's a bit of a push to get everything done for that. The sports fields tender would be, we're looking to move that into August as well, and then have contractors on site in the fall sometime. The water tower, we just went through that, and that's probably about a 2-year construction process. The Edward Street overpass, although it looks kind of barren on the top, there is a fair amount of work happening underneath where they've been chipping out concrete and assessing it and then getting ready to put do the bearing replacement work. So the project's actually about 30% complete. And we did have some delays with CN, but we've got that all sorted out and things are moving forward. They will have I'll mention now, they will have a road closure on the overpass when they do the jacking process. And right now they're slating that to be July 28th. So we'll make sure that we get lots of communication out there to the public so that they know that the bridge will be closed for probably the duration of that day, probably 7 a.m. to 5 p.m.
That's a Friday?
That's a Friday, yeah. The water treatment plant, we discussed that on the last council meeting. It was the flooding assessment. So we've got approval to move forward on that. And we're getting our numbers together for the actual project work. Road resurfacing, we've got everything sorted out and where we're going to do that. The council approved all that. And that'll probably happen in September as the asphalt companies are quite busy right now. Sidewalk replacements, that's been happening for about the last 3 weeks on Dibble and Henry. Marina sewage pump, we did get one ordered and it'll arrive in about another 3 weeks, and we'll replace one of the existing ones with it and see if it's rebuildable. Some work at the town hall, the flat roof, we did get a thermal scan completed, and there's about 5 sections that should be repaired so that they don't continue to have wetness go through them. The town hall HVAC replacement, we received a couple of quotes on that. So we'll move forward in the next month or so. So then it kind of gets into the trails throughout the town or the pathways. So the next 3 items are all kind of related, and that's just paving, repaving some areas in town on the pathways. So one is in the Heritage Trail where we took out some asphalt and we put some gravel down. We're going to pave that back over. And also the paths north and east of the pool, we want to reconstruct those to a nice 2-meter wide pathway. And then another one, a pathway from the parking lot at the marina, the gravel parking lot down to the south to the waterfront. So that gives it a nice access there as well. It keeps it a little cleaner in the spring and the summer, or spring and the fall. So we've got pricing on that. We've given them the go ahead, and that'll hopefully start in the next couple of weeks. The next one is the swing sets for Centennial Park. We are still sourcing those swing sets, so I don't have any updated information on it. And then the rest is kind of play structure deficiencies kind of throughout the year, fire department replacement gear throughout the year. The food cycle program was commenced. And then the next one is a tourism smartphone. That's in the exploration phase. The drone for building department, that's on order. And then the zoning bylaw comprehensive review, and that will start after the official plan is approved by the province.
Do we have a date on that official plan being? Sorry, that's for information only, but if there's any questions for Nathan, Councillor Burton.
Thank you. Thank you, Nathan, for your report. It just goes to show you that we are doing a lot here in town and getting things done. I'm interested in hearing an update on the food cycle program. I'm hearing all sorts of feedback on it, how it's absolutely amazing. And I use mine on a daily basis and can't believe what we've saved in our garbage. But do we have a number and how many we've sold so far?
For you, my attention.
Sure.
I can take a guesstimate. I think we probably have about 20 odd units left. And I think we've sold a lot of the larger units, which is a little bit of a surprise to me, but we're doing quite well. They're still available. We've contacted everybody that signed up. So if people have not received an email, I encourage you to reach out to staff or just come in and pick up your unit. But no, they're doing quite well. And if we can get the word out to get the last one sold, that would be good.
Great. Councillor Kirkby. Sorry. Deputy Mayor. Are you done?
I thought, sorry, still
He
going.
had his hand up, threw me off.
I know, right? And he's deputy mayor, so that really threw you off. But, no, thank you. Thank you for the update. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight, if there is some still available. You know, if a homeowner has a smaller unit and they want to upgrade to the bigger unit, is that possible?
Can they buy a bigger unit?
Yes.
Trading.
Through you, Mayor Schenker.
Probably not.
They can't exchange them.
They can.
They could come in and buy a larger unit
Yep.
and do with what they wish with
Gift.
the other unit,
Yeah.
but there's no exchanges, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you. Now I'm done. Thank you.
You, Mayor Shankar.
Yes,
I'm actually going to touch on quite a bit of what you said, actually.
Oh, okay.
So we also bought the food cycler, and my wife had ordered the large one, and I thought we would only need the small one. And it turns out I would be one of them people. Was thinking of possibly selling my smaller one online and buying the bigger one. What I will say is, honestly, it's the first time in years that I can remember that we've only had one bag of garbage out at the curb. So I might have not have been the firmest believer, but I am the regular garbage collector and out to the curb guy, and it was one bag.
Wow.
And I had to run around the house just to make sure I didn't miss something. But
That's good to hear.
we are using it probably most daily, if not sometimes twice on the weekend. And it is low power, right? So I've seen some concerns online, about that, but it is low power and it really does work.
That's great. Do we have plans for a second phase of that if we sell those coins?
I think we would like to sell what we have, and then at the end of 12 weeks from the time people pick them up, they complete a survey. We'd like to bring those results back to council and then make a decision on whether you want to proceed with a second.
Okay.
I think would be a great idea if somebody's having a birthday or an anniversary, it would be a great gift, right? Right, you can really promote it that way.
He's got one, remember? He paid full price.
Yeah.
Thanks, President. It was on her list.
Oh, was it Christmas? You bought that for your wife for Christmas?
It was on her list. And yes, it was there, I purchased it.
Follow Matthew for Christmas.
Begs the question, what did you ask for?
We're looking into that.
Star Wars Lego.
So through you to Nathan, a lot of really positive stuff about the docks in the harbor, how good they're looking and everything. I understand there's a waiting list for the drive your jet skis up on it, your Sea-Doos. Is there any chance that we're going to be getting more? Apparently the shallow ones in close where the big boats can't, there's not enough water for them anyway. There are some empty. So I've been asked if we're thinking of getting more.
So through your merit. So it's, I think it's kind of a feedback loop through Samantha and Matthew as far as the user groups go down there. So maybe you guys can comment on that. Yeah.
Yes, I believe you're correct that they are sold out and there does seem to be added interest. So as we continue to monitor the docks and look at how we go forward.
There's a couple of ways in which we can expand that. One is adding it to new docks as we move forward. The second is going back and adding it maybe back to H or the first part of G. There is no power on H and Sea-Doos don't require power. So it's a good use in that particular case. And but each of those docks are about $3,500 though. So it's one of those things where we have to do a cost benefit analysis. And then as we get further down towards A, B, and C, those are prime ones that, again, we would add to. So the nice part is you can move them around after you purchase them. And that's certainly something that we can look at for next year, incorporating into buying maybe a few per year, adding them as we go, and then seeing how that works.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Nathan? Thank you, Nathan. I'm glad we're doing this. Keep everyone up to date, keep us up to date. And it's nice to see all the things we've accomplished with that. So I appreciate that. All right, 12.4, staff report 51-2023, the yield sign at Mary and Water Street. The recommendation reads that council directs staff to install a yield sign on the southeast corner of the intersection of Mary and Water Street for northbound traffic. Can I get a mover and seconder just for discussion first? Councillor Campbell, Deputy Mayor Kirkby. Matthew, you're going to speak on this?
So I wanted to just start out by saying this is a really good example of how a member of council can bring something forward for discussion. So Councillor Campbell and myself met a couple months ago, and this is one of the items that she wanted to discuss. And I think I'll let you speak to the safety concerns, but when we went back and took a look at it, yes, it makes perfect sense of what is being recommended. I had to go back and check the parking bylaw to make sure that there's nothing in there that we were violating, that sort of thing, and then bring it forward to council to have a discussion. But really, at the end of the day, it's trying to make people coming up from the boat ramp as well as perhaps from the tennis courts and whatnot, just aware that there is a cross street there, being where water meets Mary. And so when you're coming up, you're not just proceeding out into the roadway, but you're actually looking around for other vehicular traffic as well as pedestrians. So it's a great example of if you have an idea, come and have a discussion about it. We'll see. It takes a little bit of time sometimes to complete the research and make sure that we have all our ducks in a row. But kudos to Councillor Campbell for bringing this forward, and I think it's a really nice way to add for a little bit of safety at a very low cost.
Great. Any questions for Councillor Campbell or Matthew? I think it's a great idea, and it's something that hopefully deters any accidents from occurring there.
And if anything, I think you really have to comment the artistry that I put into this.
Fantastic. It almost looks like a real sign. No questions?
Well, I was
Sorry.
going to comment, with all the fun and action at Centennial Park, that's where the kids, they get out of their car, they're excited, they run ahead of their parents, and they're running right across there. So I'm really pleased that this can happen.
Yeah.
I was just going to add to that people have asked me about garbage containers in where the people park, because people apparently have been noted to just empty their cooler and all their junk in the parking lot. But if there was a garbage can, it might make them walk over to it. I don't know.
So what we call the Walker House parking lot, or so certainly we can take a look at perhaps adding it just to the west side of Centennial Park, just because I don't necessarily want to put the can in the parking lot itself, because we all know what that will end up happening. But certainly it's a good point, and maybe we can co-locate it right there.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, one more staff report. This one is 12.5, staff report 52-2023. Risk management, consideration, and implementation of inflatable devices. The recommendation reads that council approve the use of inflatable devices / structures when booking a facility on municipal property with the procedures and rules as outlined in staff report 52-2023. Can I get a mover and seconder before we discuss it? Councilor Burton and Deputy Mayor Kirkby. All right, Samantha, you got this?
Thank you, Mayor Schenker. Through you to council, we are back on the subject of inflatable devices. We do continue to get requests for use of inflatable devices, bouncy houses, inflatable obstacle courses, that kind of thing, for everything from a private booking or a birthday party at the Leo to now more and more exposure on the waterfront and community events happening, and people wanting to bring those devices in. So up until this point, these haven't been approved because we do require direction from council to move forward. That's the direction that we want to take. We do all have an idea of how fun these inflatable devices can be. We also know that they do come with inherent risk. So based on our research and through the guidance of our insurance provider, we did include an attachment for council called risk management considerations for inflatable devices, just to give you an idea of what some of those risks can be. And if we do decide to move forward, some guidelines and procedures around implementing having those devices at events on municipal property. So in an effort to mitigate that risk, we are proposing that the procedures and the rules that are outlined in the staff report be part of either the facility booking process or the event planning process, depending on what situation we're looking at, so that inflatable devices can be a part of those events. In addition to the rules and guidelines, we would propose that an operations on-call staff member be on site to attend those events, as well as staff members to be on site to ensure that our waiver form is being signed by participants before use. If council does decide to approve this, we would make sure that the recommendation would be that town staff ensure that all of the documentation is in place before the event takes place. That is kind of a timely thing. That can be a longer process because we are asking for proof of insurance from the provider. So there would be time involved in making that approval happen. In terms of alternatives, council could decide not to approve the use of inflatable devices, and potential financial implications could result if an injury claim were to happen, it could increase the insurance premiums for the town.
Thank you. Questions for Samantha Miller?
Sorry. I'm trying to do you, Justin. Samantha. So the people that, are you asking for the insurance for the people that are supplying the unit or the actual parent or whatever?
So what we would be recommending here is that if you were to bring in an inflatable device, it's from a licensed company that is certified that would be able to provide us a copy of their insurance. Okay. So the town's third-party insurance program would not cover use of an inflatable device at an event. So we would require the insurance from the company, and then we would require whoever's planning that event or booking that they have a separate special occasion permit for that. Special event coverage for that event as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Mayor Kirkby?
Through you, Mayor Schenker. I just wanted to call out the one part here where it's set up on supervision and it talks about stakes in the ground, right, to prevent from blowing away or moving or stuff like that. I believe these devices might be used in the Leo.
Yes.
And so we wouldn't be staking anything into the floor. We'd be using some kind of sandbag or approved through TSSA.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to confirm that for our insurance part there. And then I just will say that there's a lot of risks in things that happen in the town, right? Whether it be in our rinks or, you know, down at pickleball, there's always an assumed risk. Some are higher than others, but there's also some fun in these kind of risks. So I, for one, truly support the use of inflatables in the town through reputable companies that can meet our guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Young?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. Samantha, would there be an additional cost if you were going to bring inflatables to rent, say, for example, the Leo, because the operations on-call staff member would have to be there?
That's a great question. It is not something that we've had to do yet. I think Councilor Young, I think you pose a great question, and certainly something that we can go back to in terms of when we're creating our invoices, what that additional cost would be. We do have on-call staff at particular events, like roller skating, for instance. We do ensure that we have an on-call staff member at those events too. But those are more, it's our staff there running the event, planning the event. This is kind of a different situation if we have a third party coming in to work the facility. So I think you pose a great question, and we should definitely look into it.
Thank you.
Councillor Campbell and then Deputy Mayor Cook.
Right, through you, Mayor Shanker, Samantha. So I'm just worried about one of these points. Confirmation that the company will provide an operator where mandatory. Operators are mandatory for devices that exceed certain heights. If an operator is not provided, the company should provide renter with enough instruction. So I think that should read must.
Must.
Yeah. And I agree with Councillor Young's question as well, about the cost of staff if they don't provide an operator.
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Shanker, I thought we said during the talk that we were gonna have a staff member or two there. Did we not say that?
It is in there, it's up for discussion.
Yeah.
But yes, we did say that we would have an on-call staff member on site and a staff. Could that be the same person?
Possibly.
Potentially.
And we'd always work to cover them costs, I would believe, into these kind of rentals. Or anytime we use it, unless it's a town event, town sponsored event. I would be thinking we would cover some of that cost of the employees' time, right? Just wondering, just making sure. You brought up a good point. And in my head, I was already thinking we would already have charged for that. So I then got thinking we were bringing in a second person, that's all. Thank you.
And I hate to throw cold water on this because I'm in favor of it and it's great for the kids. But the second bullet third bullet that says from facility booking, event planning, the renter must provide staff with a copy of the company's insurance for $2 million with the corporation of the town of Prescott listed as an additional insured. I remember when we took some of the training, council training, and we talked about liability and insurance, that we're the big fish, right? We're the town of Prescott. And I know that further on, like part of the financial implications, I think it said if someone gets hurt, then our fees go up, but it's also increasing insurance premium. I guess there's no way around that, right? We have to be listed as an additional insurer.
We do require that for every booking.
Okay.
I can just add to that then notifies the insurance company that they have to help cover the claim. So with us being additionally insured, the insurance company is aware that it's happening on our premises and therefore they're covering. So they can't say, oh, we didn't know that it was on town property and therefore we're not going to cover that claim. So that's actually why we get named as an additional insured.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions for Samantha? All right, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? I wasn't in favor too. Okay, so do you want to record it or anything? No, we're good. So it's carried. Thank you. All right, 13 is resolutions. There are no resolutions. 14 is bylaws. 14.1 is the sale of surplus land, development drive bylaw. Motion reads that bylaw 31-2023 being a bylaw to authorize the sale of approximately 10 acres of land located on Development Drive immediately west of the Ontario Provincial Police Station by the Corporation of the Town of Prescott to 778584 Ontario Limited, be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Kirkby, Councillor Young. Any discussion on this? We beat this to death.
Is it 32 or 31?
Is what? It says 31 in my notes. Is it different?
So through you, Mayor Shanker, there was a typo when I originally sent out the agenda. That is the proper one.
32 is the right one?
31 is the right one. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
labeled incorrectly, but the one that went out to the public does say 31. It is correct.
Okay.
And all the paperwork is correct.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Good catch. Councillor McConnell?
A couple questions. This does actually what we wanted it to do, and that they have to start construction within 2 years, 24 months, I believe it is, on the first 2 acres or 2.5 acres, and within 1 more year on the next section. However, I don't see anything in here unless I just flat out missed it about the other half. They mentioned 10 years, but if they start construction of the second part, does the other 2 parts then sit there for, is there a possibility the other 2 parts are gonna sit there for 7 years and there's nothing we can do about it?
So potentially. So what we said is that we wanted at least 50% of the land developed within that 3-year timeframe. And so as long as they meet that, then the buyback clause is null and void. This is the exact same agreement that was passed last fall. It's just we had to go through the various conditions, and then we just recently rezoned that, which was the final condition, and then this is just to bring that purchase into validation.
Thank you.
Cards. We are concerned about getting development, and we're putting a clause in every piece of property that we sell for development that we're requiring development within a certain period of time to leave those acres in our industrial park for 7 years without any kind of control over them whatsoever. That's not the type of development that we're looking for. The other problem I have with this is the fact that if we do wind up rebuying it, we've agreed to pay them, or we're purporting to pay them 100% of what they paid. That's not usually what we do. We try and recoup the costs that we have had up to the date in doing this. We've had costs as far as rezoning and stuff like that goes. I would think that we would want at least 5% retained to cover those costs that we would encounter up to that point.
Okay, council already agreed to this particular, all to these terms and conditions last fall. This is just enacting this purchase agreement.
Seems to me I brought that same complaint up last fall.
It didn't make the sales agreement.
This is a sales agreement and we haven't agreed to it yet.
So we passed the bylaw previously. And so now if you want to change that agreement, we have to go back to the purchaser because we already agreed to all the terms and conditions. It's just the fact that we took a little bit longer than we expected on satisfying those conditions.
I guess my memory isn't that great because I don't remember agreeing to anything to let somebody have something in our industrial park for 7 years and sit on it and nothing we can do about it. That doesn't seem right to me. The 5%, I can probably live with that, but I don't see us giving anybody any portion of property for 7 years. They don't have to do anything with it. That just doesn't make any sense to me at all. We're looking for development.
So to be clear, 50% of the property would be developed within 3 years.
And where does the 7 years come from?
Schedule, that's what he's referring to, worst case schedule, right?
This thing goes on for 10 years. The figure of 10 years is mentioned in there. And they have to develop the first half in 2 phases. I suppose they could do all 1 phase if they wanted to, that'd be great. The other half can sit there for 7 years with nothing done to it. And in the meantime, if we have people that are looking for property, and we've gone through that lately, it doesn't seem to be in line with what our intents and our policies have been.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Campbell?
So is the intent of this company to, do you feel the intent of the company is to get it developed as quickly as they can, or will they sit on this 7 years?
So to be clear, if they develop the first 2.5 acres within 24 months and the second 2.5 acres within 36 months, we don't have a right to repurchase anymore. Because they've developed at least 50% of the total acreage.
Okay, anyone else? Just for the record, the numbered company is 778581. I misread that. Okay, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. New business, 15.1 is the Lanark County Resolution of Support, RE Protecting First Responders from Violence. Councillor Young, you brought this resolution forward.
Thank you.
Speak to it.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. So this was Bill C-321. It was an act to amend the criminal code, assault against healthcare professionals and first responders. And the intent of it is to require that the court consider the fact that the victim of the assault is a healthcare professional or first responder. And they would like that to be an aggravating circumstance for purposes of sentencing. And just a little bit of background, it's a private member's bill. It's been gone through 2 readings and it's currently sitting in committee, so it takes a long time to pass something. But what was I gonna say? These workers, like we know, they play a really important role in our society. And they're subject to physical violence, they're subject to threats, they're subject to a lot of verbal abuse while they're doing it. So the argument, the reason that the private member brought this forward is that they feel this bill will send a clear message that the safety matters, because too many times first responders have heard the charges won't be pursued because they won't stick. So this is what they're hoping that this new bill will do. And I would like to see our council support and send it to our own MP in addition to the Minister of Justice.
Any questions for Councillor Young? Ms. Vilken, what's our next step there?
So through you, Mayor Shankar, I do have a draft motion that council, the corporation of the town of Prescott support the resolution of the council of the county of Lanark regarding legislative measures to help first responders from violence, particularly those found in Bill C-321, and that a copy of this resolution be circulated to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the county of Lanark, and I will add in the MP for our area as well as Minister of Justice and all of the municipalities in Leeds and Grenville for the support.
So will you move that? And a seconder, Councillor Burton. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right, 16, there's no notices of motion and there's no items under mayor's proclamation. Do we have any media online? No? That's good. All right, so item 19.1 is closed session. I have a motion that reads that council move into closed session at 7:20 p.m. to discuss matters pertaining to 19.1 approval of closed session minutes from June 19th, 2023. Purchase and sale matter under section 239(2)C of the Municipal Act. Proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And that the CAO, treasurer, clerk, economic development officer, and deputy clerk remain in the room. Can I have a mover and seconder? Deputy Mayor Kirkby, Councillor Lockett, all in favor? Carried, thank you. So do you want to take a comfort break?